Nope. I'm gonna need something stronger. What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today, people, season of Heretic, or episode Heretic. I apologize. I know that there's clearly a difference between the two, right?
I think what episodes allows us to do is to not only continue telling stories in I think a new and pretty interesting way, but it also allows us to just really amp up the variety of the types of things that we can bring and when we can bring them into the game.
So that was a fucking lie.
Oh yeah, we got less content, and they run longer, and somehow, some way, through some Herculean leap in logic that us mere mortals will never be able to comprehend, they're somehow worse. You can't make this shit up. Bungie, I don't know how you do it. You are a masterclass in creating mediocrity. So where do we start with the shit show? I guess at the start. No, that risks being interesting. We have to start from the very start when you load up the game for the first time. Xiva, Wrath, and Sloan dialogue. Missing dialogue. Episode Heresy is missing recorded lines for the characters Xiva, Wrath, and Sloan. To improve your experience, we have enabled subtitles by default to assist you understanding Episode Heresy's story. Turning them off will result in only hearing parts of a conversation, or none at all. Not that having them on helps all that much either. Take a look at this. Yeah, with the exception of blurring out the fire team, that's not edited. And I hope you're ready to deal with this the entire DLC. I'm not even talking about the missing dialogue right here. I'm talking about the surprise subtitles. I had this dialogue pop up after I was done testing something in a Crucible match, and it just seems to keep happening. I guess I didn't really care about that part of the story to begin with. Oh, and I should probably note that while I was talking, I never stopped playing the Destiny audio, just in case you were wondering how prevalent it was or how easy to miss it was. There you go. So with episode, season, Heresy, Heretic, Hennessy, Put Me Out of My Misery, there is a lot to unpack, but also not really. If you want the 50,000 feet spoiler-free TLDR, the season story had the potential to be the best story so far. However, the emotional underpinnings or the weight of the events that transpire and the things that the characters are going through are ultimately shattered by deafening silence, as pivotal characters to the narrative are unvoiced. You'll be playing Horde mode, not Horde mode 3582, or even entire campaign missions, and you better be paying attention to the subtitles or you'll have no clue what's going on. Oh, and at time of recording, the little blurb at the top of the screen that tells you who's speaking seems to be currently broken, so you don't even know who's speaking when you have the subtitles that have no audio. So you just kind of gotta make your best guess. And if it seems like I'm harping on this a bit, well, I am. Voice acting adds to the emotional underpinning of the story. Without that, or with a story that's just a mishmash of voiced and unvoiced dialogue, you end up in a place where the presentation hurts the overall narrative. Now, this is where we get into the nuance of the problem. A week before the DLC released, Bungie released this statement, quoting, "Due to an ongoing SAG AFTRA strike, you may notice certain lines being silent in-game. However, we have enabled subtitles by default for this release to ensure players do not miss any narrative content." The ongoing SAG strike is a can of worms we'll get into momentarily, but from what I've looked into, SAG actors who are striking are still allowed to work with any company that agrees to their terms, which I'm just assuming Bungie didn't do, hypothetically, allegedly, as not only are there US voice actors who are not present, but many of the voice actors throughout the different versions of the game are missing as well, in languages that, from my understanding at least, aren't having the same problems. Now, there could just be this thing where actors internationally have just agreed to not take work from studios who don't agree to their demands. But that means Bungie didn't agree to their demands, or are using the SAG strikes as an excuse to, hypothetically, allegedly, in somebody's opinion, cut cost. But Bungie would never do that. That's just silly. They would never not renew contract work to save money. Now, I'm not bitching about this because I desperately need voice acting in my games because I can't read or something. I play Final Fantasy XIV. 70% of that game is a visual novel. 90% of that game during the patch content. I play visual novels. Steins Gate is referenced all over my channel. The border you see around my face right now is a Steins Gate reference. The channel logo is a Steins Gate reference. This isn't a case of Joker can't read because poor dumb American. Which, hey, given our education system, there might be a tiny little concern there. But realistically, it's just the presentation is shit. Again, that's not edited. That takes place during a campaign mission. I really hope that story information isn't important because I didn't even notice it until I went back on the recording. So I can't imagine how many people are actually just sitting there playing the game, missing out on all the story content being presented. The way that Bungie has chosen to do subtitles and the way that they've chosen to do dialogue is just poorly implemented. Any other MMO, which I'll remind you, Destiny keeps insisting that it is, wouldn't have this problem. Now, it's important that we criticize this aspect. To be 150% clear, I'm on the voice actor side. I don't want games that are full of AI voices. I don't want art that's full of AI generation. And what's the point of a strike? To demonstrate that the products are lesser without the workers. So if we don't criticize the lack of voice acting in this product, the message isn't sent. Bungie, from my understanding, could have agreed to terms that would have allowed voice actors to cross the picket line and work on Destiny. They chose not to. And I think the question really needs to be asked, why not? Why didn't Bungie agree to these terms? I don't know. Do you? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe it's Sony. Maybe I'm being too harsh. But come on, it's not like Bungie would ever do anything sketchy or unethical with St. Pete Parsons leading the helm. Like, I don't know, laying somebody off 5 days before their maternity leave so they didn't have to hypothetically, allegedly, in somebody's opinion, not my opinion, but somebody's opinion, said maternity leave. And they would certainly never do things like use the voice actor strike as an excuse to not pay voice actors. No, never. Pay? Never. Ever. No. Not even once. Not even a little bit. Because, I mean, it's not like, and I'm just throwing this out here to quote a former Bungie community manager, Bennett Griffin, curious, what difference would that have made when you have, I assume, already purchased the season? I mean, you know, it's not like Bungie would assume that they already have your money, so they would make lackluster content. No. Hypothetically, allegedly, in somebody's opinion, not my opinion, but hey, somebody's. But if that's not the case, and Bungie would never, ever do anything untoward, then one has to ask, why didn't they agree to the voice actors' terms? So the message needs to be sent to Bungie that this is unacceptable, because if we ignore this, what message is sent? Well, like, we don't need voice acting that bad. We don't need Bungie to give us good stories and finished quality content. We don't need it. We'll just keep paying for the same slop over and over and over again ad nauseum. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody wants that message to be sent. And not just to Bungie, but to everybody else watching. That's kind of the biggest point of this channel at this moment. It's not necessarily just about Bungie and Destiny. It's about Sony. It's about the import that Sony has on Bungie. It's about Bungie's effect on the rest of the gaming landscape. How many more live service, games as a service games need to die before people understand that, actually, yeah, all these companies are trying to follow in Bungie's footsteps. I mean, for crying out loud, the CEO of EA came out the other day and said, oh, the reason that Dragon Age Veilguard failed wasn't because it was a bad game with a story nobody wanted to play and lazy RPG mechanics. No, that would be silly. The reason that Dragon Age the Veilguard failed was because it wasn't a games as a service game. EA, BioWare, you did this. It was called Anthem. But hey, fucking details, am I right? Now to be 150% clear, just in case I wasn't, I don't have any problem with the voice actors striking. Sure, I take issue with the way that the guilds run the industry, turning it into a kinda sorta mafia where only a handful of voice actors, the same handful that you see in basically everything, are successful. But that also doesn't mean I want a bunch of AI slop. Both these issues have problems, and there's nuance to them. I know. Nuance, this complex thing that people don't quite understand, but again, hey, fucking details. Now, what is the point of a strike? The point of the strike is to send the message that the companies need these workers to assure the quality of a product. That's fairly simple, easy to understand, barely inconvenient. So again, I'm on the side of the voice actors. However, if we excuse the current quality of Destiny because they didn't hire voice actors, then doesn't that kind of, I don't know, invalidate the point of the strike? If the point of the strike is to say, hey, you need us to assure the quality of your product, and people give the quality of a product a pass, then the strike has failed. All the strike's shown is, actually, no, we don't need you. So again, I'm not criticizing this because I'm a cold, heartless bastard who just hates everything and wants to see Destiny fail. It is within everybody's best interest for Bungie to produce quality products. It's in the customer's best interest because we're paying for this. It's in the gaming industry's best interest because for some bizarre reason, everybody in the gaming industry overvalues Bungie. I mean, after all, Sony bought Bungie because of their talent, because of Destiny. And if you've been following the news, you would know that Sony and PlayStation have been integrating Bungie management and Bungie employees into their corporate structure. Now, I'm sure that this is just to pacify investors to make it look like Bungie was in a total waste of money, but that's kind of the point in the shape of the tooth, isn't it? Bungie was a colossal waste of money. And now Sony has to justify that $3.6 billion waste of money to its investors, or risk losing their investors. So now Bungie and Bungie culture and Bungie influence has way more control over the gaming industry than ever before, whether you like it or not. So if you don't think that the way that Bungie runs things is dictating at least half of gaming, you've lost the plot. And even at Microsoft, where they took one look at Bungie's books and said, that's going to be a hard pass from us, boss, they still went with a 10-year plan for Halo. And how did that work out for Halo Infinite? Oh, right. So again, it's in everybody's best interest that Bungie either fails outright or they get their shit together. I would prefer it if they got their shit together. It's in the voice actor's best interest because I'm sure they like getting paid. It's in the developer's best interest because I'm sure they like getting paid and having jobs. It's in Pete Parsons' best interest because I'm sure he likes new cars. So it's in everybody's best interest to point out that this DLC, at least the way that it's presented, kinda sucks. And it's a shame because honestly, and I don't know, maybe I'm just used to getting bad Destiny story content at this point, but this DLC and its narrative seems really interesting. It sure as shit a step up from what we got last season.
You have my gratitude. And a miscale.
Whoa. Hold the fun bus back the fuck up. Let me make sure I understand what's going on here. We just handed Aramis an ontological nuke. You know, Aramis. The same Aramis that spent 500 plus years pursuing the extinction of the human race for no other reason than she couldn't accept the fact that her god got uppity one day and pissed off. And then she got, quote unquote, over the Traveler leaving and decided, you know what? I think I'm gonna side with the darkness and still wipe humanity out. I mean, what are we even doing at this point? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Not only have we killed legions, and I mean legions of enemies and gods and godlike beings and other ontological forces for transgressions nowhere even close to what Aramis has done, but the writing comes off like there's a meme where Naruto's reaching his hand out to and he's like, it's not too late. We can stop this. I think the best part is you can't even really be mad about how bad the DLC is because it's just so ridiculous. It's so hilarious. At the end, Aramis basically drops a bunch of slurs, calls the Sol system a war-torn hellhole, you know, after she spent 500 years trying to genocide humanity, takes an ontological nuke, and then fucks off.
Machine spawn. This is Aramis of No House, Echo Bearer, and Voice of Race.
No, can't do that, got copyright striked, but you get the joke. And we're just like, sure, why not? I guess we'll deal with that later if we ever have to deal with it. Absolute cinema. But hey, you know what? At the end of the day, Destiny is a video game, not an audiobook. So how's the gameplay? If you guessed it's more of the same, then you're not necessarily wrong. But Joker, I hear you cry out in your shrill tremulous voice, what about the dungeon? At time of recording, the dungeon hasn't been released, but then why not just wait? After all, the video will likely release after the dungeon, so it wouldn't be hard to edit in a small segment about the dungeon. And you know what? That's fair. Editing Joker here. The dungeon is great! Good job, Bungie. Because every video is somebody's first, traditionally, I have always treated dungeons and raids as their own thing, separate from the base content. Dungeons are, after all, sold separately. So, in my mind, it makes sense to review them as two separate products. There's also a pragmatism to that choice. I mean, for starters, it gives me multiple videos, but details. There's also just loads of players who will never ever play dungeons or raids, giving a season a better overall review because this one thing that's sold separately that not everybody plays doesn't make sense to me. And the inverse is also true. More often than not, it's the season and the episode's qualities that aren't up to par with the dungeon or raid. And there's not an insignificant portion of my community or the Destiny community that doesn't care about the season or the episode or the DLC. They're just here to play raids and dungeons. So again, it doesn't make sense to have the dungeon or raids quality dictated by the DLC or the DLC's quality dictated by a sold separately dungeon. Get it, got it good? The biggest change to gameplay is now health is a resource. What does that mean? Well, it means now your health won't regen, but you have 200% more health than normal. That's not really that big of a problem. I mean, if you're just me, you put on Skullfort and you go running around the meadows and collecting the flowers with electrokinetic trauma. Done! Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. However, all is not well with Bungie in this update, as it seems some healing builds may not be acting as they should. Bungie is currently investigating this, and we'll know what's going on when we know. Outside of that unique health-related piece of flavor, have you played a Horde mode in Destiny? Have you played Gambit where you fight Taken? Have you done what Destiny calls puzzles? This isn't new Destiny, this isn't good Destiny. This is just more Destiny, which is probably why I've been going a little harder on it than maybe it deserves. Because Destiny didn't need more just Destiny. Destiny needed something new. Something to bring players back. Something to invigorate the franchise. Not because Heretic, Heresy, Hennessy needed it, but because Frontiers needed it. Destiny is not in a good place right now, and I feel like saying that is almost an understatement. Destiny has been hemorrhaging players for the last couple of years. Large DLCs do see a return, but players don't stick around. Currently, at time of recording, there's only around 50,000 players peak last 24 hours playing Destiny. Destiny is a game that's all-time peak was 316,000 players. By comparison, Warframe, since 2017, has had an average daily player base of around 50,000 players every day. It wasn't long ago, just a couple of weeks ago in fact, that Destiny was trending down to 10 and 11,000 players. 20,000 players maybe a day. That's not good. That's not good at all. More so because we know when Destiny has these larger numbers, they're still hemorrhaging money. Lightfall saw the highest peak of Destiny players in years and still lost money. Why did Lightfall lose money? Because players didn't stay. Players didn't buy things from the cash shop. Destiny is the sort of game that needs hundreds of thousands of players logging in daily, weekly, monthly, whatever, and spending hundreds of dollars. Outside just the initial cover charge to get in. If people don't do that, Destiny is not profitable. Or, well, Bungie's not profitable. There is a difference between Destiny not being profitable and Bungie not being profitable. Bungie not being profitable just means that they're wasting Destiny's money. Destiny not being profitable is fixed with quality updates, new content, new game experiences, not just old game experiences repackaged and repurposed and resold as new game experiences. There is nothing in this update that screams to the lapsed player that they have to come back and play this update. And there's sure shit nothing that screams to a new player, now is the best time ever to get involved in Destiny. It just doesn't exist. So why would anyone care? Why would anybody play it? Why would anyone start? Destiny's already a $200+ cover charge for a new player, and this is what they get? A half voice-acted DLC with more recycled and regurgitated content with Horde mode 3582? If I didn't want voice acting in my game, I could go play a game that was designed not to have voice acting. Not Destiny going, we're just going to do the same thing. We're not going to try to accommodate the fact that we have no voice acting. Because we don't really care. I mean, why would they? The content's just going to be gone in a couple months anyways, and that's really the point in the shape of the tooth. And that's why I don't necessarily believe the defenders of Bungie when they say, oh, Bungie's just standing in solidarity with the voice actors. They didn't scab or whatever. Because at the end of the day, again, from my understanding, and I could be mistaken, they could have had the voice actors. They just had to agree to the SAG agreements. Why didn't they? Oh, well, it's because I don't think Bungie actually thinks AI doing art and encroaching on video games is a bad thing. In fact, we know that Christopher Barrett, before he was laid off, made several posts talking about the good of AI in the development process. So could it be that Bungie didn't agree to these terms and conditions because, well, they don't agree with them? Because they know that the customers will just buy the game? Because they don't care? Because they know that the game's going to be disposable and that this content's not going to be around in a couple months anyway, so why bother? Why waste the money? How is this going to affect Frontiers? How long can a game or a franchise go on going, we can't get voice actors because X, Y, and Z strikes are happening? How long should we as the customer be prepared to keep paying for games that don't service us, regardless of strikes or whatever intent companies have. How long are we as customers willing to foot the bill for other people's incompetence? Frontiers will happen. It's inevitably in development. But if Frontiers devolves to having this 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 24-hour peak player base on Steam, when it could have hundreds of thousands of players, that's a wrap. That's a body bag. Call the morgue, because we got to put Destiny in the ground, or at least on ice. I mean, realistically, think about it. Does anyone in my audience see Destiny surviving Marathon if Marathon comes out and is the next Fortnite, Call of Duty, or hell, even if it maintains a current Destiny-esque player base size? With the fact that that game will inevitably be cheaper to make, does anyone foresee Destiny surviving that? If Frontiers is just more of the same when it comes to the player base, or worse? No. And what in the current climate of Destiny has shown players, over the last year even, that this is a game that has a future? I mean, I can go back to that quote from the start of the video where the developer was talking about how episodes were supposed to change the franchise.
I think what episodes allows us to do is to not only continue telling stories in I think, a new and pretty interesting way, but it also allows us to just really amp up the variety of the types of things that we can bring and when we can bring them into the game.
So that was a fucking lie.
But they didn't. They're just more of the same, only less. After being so blatantly lied to by Bungie, why should customers care about anything they have to say? Over and over and over again, they lie, or they exaggerate the truth. The episodes didn't do anything crazy and new. It was just same shit, different day. So why should Frontiers be any different? Developer trust is a currency. It's a currency that these studios spend when they want to do something crazy. Look at Warframe. Warframe does crazy things that don't work out all the time. And yet, Digital Extremes is able to regain player trust by showing that they care about the game, by trying to meet players halfway, by going, yes, we screwed up and we're going to learn from it. Take this clip from the No Clip documentary, for example.
What was happening was we were doing our routine, and Warframe's routine is great and it lasts, and it has sometimes, I think it has a saturation point of people needing a pivot for Warframe. So the 2 years prior, the pivot was cinematic quests, right? It came out of nowhere. No one was sitting there saying, I want a story that's going to surprise me. But they were saying, I'm bored. So how do you treat boredom with ambition, right? So you kind of have this repeated scenario where you can see your players are bored. They're asking for stuff, but what they're really saying is they're bored, right? And yes, you can deliver this feedback loop of, okay, we'll buff this Warframe, we'll change that, we'll change these missions, and that matters a shit ton. That matters so much. But to treat the boredom at a different level, you need to shock and awe.
Right. Interesting. It's almost like the things you need to do are A, listen to your community, and B, not listen to your community.
Well,
give them something.
I'm saying, like, basically, take your vitamins every day, right? Like, you will be healthy, you will be happy. It's good for you. It's good for us. But you know, sometimes you need a new flavor, right? So you're still trying to keep the maintenance up of this back and forth relationship, but you need to change things sometimes, because if we had just released a weapon week after week after week after week for the last 5 years, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. Right. What we did do was we continued to release those weapons, but we added cinematic quests, we added Arcwing, we added Lunaro, which turned out no one really plays, which is fine. You're allowed to make mistakes, that's cool, but you need to try.
Same thing goes with Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, yeah, sure, Dawn Trail's story was divisive, to say the least. Some might even say it sucked shit through a straw. The battle content was great, and players have years of trusting Square Enix to do better, because if they don't do better, they're going to lose money. And then take a look at a studio like 343 or BioWare. They don't have player trust. Why? Because we've inarguably gotten 3 Halo games back to back to back that suck. There's no reason to trust 343 Industries, now Halo Studio. They have to earn that trust. Same thing with BioWare. BioWare isn't the same BioWare as it used to be. They have Shipathesius that company more ways than one. Currently, there's only 100 people or less than working there, and that's after Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem, and now Dragon Age Failguard. 3 strikes, you're out. The point being, like these other studios, once Bungie had a lot of currency. They had a lot of players' trust, and year after year after year, they would spend it. Not on cool and exciting new things that just didn't work out. The point is, there's nothing within this DLC that inspires within me the confidence that we're back, that Destiny is back, that Bungie's back, that everybody should play this, that this is a quintessentially new and amazing Destiny experience. There's nothing in this DLC that inspires in me the idea that Bungie will ever be able to provide that kind of experience. There's nothing in this DLC that inspires in me the idea that Destiny can survive much longer. What this DLC ultimately boils down to is a hodgepodge of already tired ideas and tropes. Oh, here we are, dredging up the rotting carcass of the Dreadnought to inspire fan nostalgia and hopefully bring people back. Oh, here we are, throwing a character in the fridge to inspire people to go, oh, just like they did with Cade. I hope people come back. Oh, here we are. We're going to have a Star Wars crossover event because Pete Parson needs a new car. This DLC is just so pitifully sad so far. Now, again, it could get better. This is a first impression. It's not new Destiny. It's not better Destiny. It's just more Destiny. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. But above all else, stay frosty.